Hello everybody, this is Nick DeTiro. If you remember, we started this semester talking about the beginnings and the middle. And if you remember, I took you out to the birthplace of James A. Garfield. And I didn't choose James A. Garfield just because he was the only local president, and it would be easy. But I chose him because, if you remember from my previous video, that Lakeland is about a mile away from Lawnfield, James A. Garfield's home. And we basically take that for granted, that we pass by a presidential home almost every day. We probably pass by it several thousand times in our life, literally, and it's just at a certain point, it just becomes a gray building in the background. Now, if you look over my shoulder, there's a different building. The building behind me, first of all, I'm standing in Lakeview Cemetery out in Cleveland, one of the more historic cemeteries in the country. Actually, people from all over the world visit this cemetery because there's a lot of famous people. It's very peaceful, very respectful place. John D. Rockefeller is buried here. He's probably buried about 100 yards over in that direction. If you don't know who John D. Rockefeller is, open up a history book. Some other famous individuals you might have heard, or even groups of individuals you may have heard of. Raymond Chapman, the only Major League Baseball player ever killed by the game. He's about a quarter mile that way. If you're familiar with Cleveland history, if you ever walk out of a school building, you will always notice with the school building that doors open outwards, and that it has to deal with the unfortunate famous Collinwood School fire, where I'd have to look up the dates, I apologize for it, many children burned to death because when they tried to get out of the school, the doors opened inward, and as they're trying to get, they were basically pushed against a door that couldn't be opened. So there's a lot of very interesting history. It's a very peaceful place. At a certain point, it's almost a park. People come here, they walk, they're very respectful. So let's not look on it as just a cemetery, but it's a very peaceful place in Cleveland. But immediately behind me is one of the biggest structures, if not the biggest structure in the cemetery, and that's James A. Garfield's monument. Him and his wife lie in state in there. It's a gorgeous structure, and it represents his end. If you look up presidents, or if you look up presidents that didn't accomplish much, unfortunately, President Garfield's name will often come to the top, and that's kind of sad. Unfortunately, he was elected in 1880, he took office in 1881, and very shortly in office, he was shot by a deranged individual. At the time, he didn't die immediately. There's some sad stats about it, that he basically died from the doctors trying to cure him. But I don't want to focus on that, because sadly, when people talk about Garfield, they automatically jump to that. That he was a Civil War general, he was in office one of the shortest amount of times, and he was assassinated. I want to talk about Garfield's life as a whole. I'm not a historian, I've made that point abundantly clear, but there's some key facts about Garfield I think are very important. One is, they do consider him one of the last of the Lincoln Republicans. I'm not going to talk politics, but he was a staunch supporter of Abraham Lincoln. And more importantly, not only was he was an abolitionist, he was anti-slavery, he was extremely pro-civil rights, and this is in the 1870s, 1860s, 1870s, into the 1880s. It wasn't good enough for him and the people he believed in. It wasn't good enough just to free enslaved people. That was just a start for him. He was a firm believer in full civil rights for previously enslaved individuals. Now, you might think, again, I'm not a historian, you might think that we just had a civil war, 1861, 1865. Everybody was pro-civil rights. Oh, no, that is a very small community. The vast majority of the country did believe in freeing the enslaved individuals, people, but they didn't believe in granting them complete rights. We had years of Reconstruction, and that was eventually ending. And Garfield's platform as president was to grant full civil rights, voting rights, to stop the Jim Crow era before it even started. He kind of predicted that things in this country were going down the wrong path, especially in the Reconstructed South. His opponent in the 1880 election, Winfield Scott Hancock, Civil War general, famous Civil War general, he wanted to return white supremacy back to the South. And these are all historical facts. I'm not disparaging anybody. They didn't want to restore slavery, but Winfield Scott Hancock did not believe in equal treatment. So James A. Garfield wasn't just somebody say, hey, let's have a civil war. You know, it sounds silly, but we fought the Civil War and we freed enslaved individuals. He was really one of the forerunners in full civil rights. And we can sit here and we can talk about what ifs, and there's no way we can prove what ifs. But if you remember from my first video, I talked about his beginning out in Moreland Hills, and I walked around the grounds of his beginning. Something you should know about him: he didn't have straight paths from beginning to end. First of all, he was, lack of a better word, he was homeschooled. He didn't get formal education until he was 17 or 18 years old. He came from a broken marriage. His parents got divorced, and this is in the early 1800s. This is not like now. So he was a product of a broken marriage, which really caused him a lot of angst, caused him a lot of issues where people didn't accept him. He started his formal education much later in life, so basically he was then homeschooled. Before that, he bounced around from colleges to colleges. He eventually he graduated, I believe, from Williams College, but he bounced around. He didn't have that defining path that a lot of us think these successful individuals will often have. So as we wrap up the semester, we started at Garfield's beginning, and now we're ending the semester at Garfield's monument. And I'll take a walk around. I'll take some videos of it. Keep in mind, he could have been one of the best presidents. There are predictions, and there, a lot of historians now look and say he could have been one of the best presidents we ever had. Unfortunately, he was assassinated because he had some firm beliefs. So if we look at his monument, and I believe it's still open, and if it's open, I'll go to the top of it because there's some fantastic views. We'll be extremely respectful. Keep in mind that he started very impoverished. He started from a broken home, which back then was tragic. He didn't have a clear path, didn't get formal education until much later in life. He fundamentally bounced around from school to school, but he was an exceptional student. I guess we would call him a gifted student when he eventually did become a student. He could have even been a prodigy. It's hard to measure those things, but by all indications, who he was and some of the things that he did, he could have been a prodigy. So let's walk up. Hopefully we can walk up to the top of the monument and we can get a good view of the city of Cleveland. I'm going to be very extremely respectful to the situation, so I'm not going to be filming too much on the inside of the monument. Like I said, him and his wife are in there, and let's be respectful, okay? So let's march up to the top of the monument. Let's hope it's open. Doesn't appear to be open. Alrighty, let's see, let's walk around. Maybe there's a side door. I don't think so. I should have planned ahead, but I wanted to come out here on a nice fall day near the end of the semester. So maybe someday when they open it in the summer, I'll come out here and we'll walk around again and get a view from the top. I was at the top a few years ago. It's really a great view of the city of Cleveland. Nope. Should have planned a little bit better. But I'll lift my camera up a little bit. There's the lake. So if you're at the top of the monument, you can see to the lake. All right. This has been Nick DeTiro. We're at closed off, but we're at the Garfield Monument, Lakeview Cemetery. Let's go out and learn something.